Well, good afternoon, everybody, on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. We have with us today Mr. Keith Vanderbeck, and he is a playwright. He has written a play. The play has been produced and received, and now he's going to tell us about it. Keith, start at the beginning, dear.
Why are you having a fit about
Yeah, my name is Keith Vanderbeck, and I was a probation officer. I've been retired for 8 years, but I was a probation officer for 30 years. And I was sitting in my friend's office at lunchtime one day, and it was actually June 2nd, 1991. And the local Binghamton paper used to have a 50 years ago today. 50 years ago today, June 2nd, 1991, Lou Gerhig dies in New York City as a parole commissioner. And I said, parole commissioner? You know, I was a lifelong Yankee fan at the time. I'm like, that really? So I researched it a little bit, and sure enough, he was. The Yankees kind of threw him under the bus in '39 after the season was over. He wanted to work in the front office, but I was told back then players didn't work in the front office. Kind of like, today you got the Steinbrenners owning the Yankees, and the Cashmans used to own the Mets, and the Bushes in St. Louis, and back then, the players just didn't work in the front office. So Lou Gerhig, it's kind of, in my opinion, I do believe it's a story the Yankees don't want you to know. I mean, you see the movie Pride of the Yankees, and you see Lou Gerhig with, doing the Pride of the Yankees movie and giving the Gettysburg Address of Sports at the end of the movie, which is the, luckiest man in the face of the earth speech. And he goes in the tunnel and he dies. No, he lives for 2 more years. And so I'll cut to the chase. Mayor LaGuardia, once he finds out the Yankees aren't going to offer him employment, steps up to the plate, no pun intended, and appoints him a parole commissioner. So Lou Gerhig was a parole commissioner the last 2 years of his life.
Now, what is a parole commissioner?
Well, in New York State, probation and parole are separate, but it's a, I would say, hearing officer when probation violations are filed by the probation department. They have to hear the parole commission would hear the probation parole violations or make a determination.
What?
Sending them back to reform school or we'll talk a little more about that. But so Gerhig was one of 3 people that heard probation and parole violations in New York City pretty much from October of 1939. He immediately starts after the Yankees win the World Series in '39. They beat Cincinnati Reds 4 straight, and that's when it was. He knew before that they weren't going to offer him employment. But Mayor LaGuardia, like I say, New York City, PLL LaGuardia.
Well, why did the Yankees give up on him?
Well, the disease could have been part of it, but I think it was honestly because Gerhig thought he was going to beat ALS. But I think it was just the fact that players, once they outused their usefulness, that was the end of them. I mean, there might be some scouting instructional stuff.
Yeah, it's corporate America, right?
I would, the Yankees, like I say, that's what my Yankee friends will tell me, that it's a big business,
Sure, it's a big business.
He was Lou Gerhig. He was the captain. I mean, he was, come on,
Yeah.
Sharp guy, Columbia. Went to Columbia for a couple of years.
You know what they are, Keith? They're flesh peddlers. They're flesh peddlers.
Yeah, and not to diss the Yankees. At the time, in 1939, the owner of the Yankees, Colonel Rupert, he owned a brewing company. He dies in early '39. So this Ed Barrow is the general manager of the Yankees in '39, and he pretty much was running the team as the general manager. And he's in the play that I wrote, he's the villain than the Yankees, because he is the one that tells Eleanor Gerhig, Lou's wife, that he's no longer of use to us anymore.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, it's a true story. It gets better as
Now,
full on.
who was the owner of the Yankees at that time?
A guy by the name of Colonel Rupert. I forget his first name, but he owned a brewery in New York City. Colonel Rupert.
Oh, okay.
Early. Barrow. Now, Ed Barrow was a baseball guy. He signed Honus Wagner back in the day. He was a general manager of when Dave Ruth was a rookie in Boston. So Ed Barrow, he knew his baseball. There's no question about that.
Now, what was Babe Ruth doing at that time?
Well, the Yankees. Babe Ruth is with the Yankees until 1935, and then he goes on to the Boston Braves. You know, he plays one more year, but you know, obviously Ruth and Gerhig were, you know, they were close pals, and I mean, Gerhig was I think he got tired of Babe Ruth's juvenile delinquency. You know, Babe was in a orphanage until he was 18. And when the Baltimore Orioles originally signed Babe Ruth out of all of the Baltimore orphanage, it was a Catholic orphanage, and actually Al Jolson was in the same orphanage earlier. You know, I don't know, approximately the same time or a little bit before. But yeah, so Babe Ruth and Lou Gerhig actually have a falling out in 35 because Babe was married before, and Mrs. Gerhig, Lou's mother, was a tough cookie. She and both Babe had a child from a previous marriage, and Babe's second wife had a child from a previous marriage, and so you know there was kind of the redheaded stepchild thing, and so Mrs. Gerhig is sitting in a game. They put all the players, wives, and family in the same section, and Mrs. Gerhig said, "Too bad Julia, that's Babe Ruth's second wife, doesn't dress Dorothy as nice as she, or doesn't dress Jane as nice as she dresses Dorothy." And that got back to Lou Gerhig, and you know, you don't talk bad about somebody's mother. Certainly, Lou Gerhig was very close to his mom, and so they had a falling out from pretty much 35 until the Gettysburg Address of Sports, the luckiest man to face Earth speech, in July 4th of 1939, and then they make up, and then they're friends again.
Well, no, honey, we better get on to your writing the play.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I learned so much about this guy. It was incredible how much, you know, I read 3 of his obituaries. And that's when I realized that I had something here, in that one of his obituaries, it was from a New York paper, said that he would take his probationers in the summer of 1940 to these open-air concerts by the New York Philharmonic, either, you know, like, you know, in Central Park or wherever the parks they would schedule these open-air concerts, free open-air concerts in the summer of 1940 so Gerhig believed in music therapy. He actually believed, and he was German, so his favorite opera was Wagner's Tristan. So he was a B Western guy. His Eleanor was the one that turned him on to the opera, but Lou, being fluent in German, both his parents were, you know, immigrants from Germany. You go to an opera, I got to read the teleprompter on the bottom, but Gerhig obviously knew, you know, he could understand the German when it was on stage. He didn't have to read it from he was fluent in German, like I said. So he actually believes in this music therapy and takes his probationers to these concerts in 1940. And music therapy doesn't come about in this country until after World War II, when the veterans would come home, and they were in, you know, veterans' homes. They could control their mood by the music that they would play. They could bring them down or bring them up, depending on. So again, Lou Gehrig's ahead of his time, and which is, and I should say, the last year Gerhig was $39, which back then is a heck of a lot of money. But so the Yankees aren't contracting them a year. But the parole commissioner's job is $5,700 a year. So here you got a guy, Gary, who takes a $30,000 pay cut, doesn't blink because he had an offer to put his name over a bar and restaurant, and he's for $36,000 for the next year. It was going to be Lou Gehrig's place, whatever they were going to, but it was Lou Gehrig's bar. So he turns that down and takes a $30,000 pay cut to be a pro commissioner.
Yeah. What was his motive? What was his motive?
I think he wanted to get back some to his hometown, and I think actually Mayor LaGuardia really sold him on the fact that he could help the youth of New York. And you got to remember, Gehrig for 17 years was nothing but a class act on and off the field. So LaGuardia felt that he was, exemplary of somebody who could do that job. And Gehrig had no criminal justice background.
Well, no, honey. If you don't get on to you and how you wrote the play.
Oh, well, okay. So I'm sitting in my office. Okay, let me tell you. I did kind of get away from that a little. It's getting a little too much. Okay, so I told this thing in 1991 for 20 years. I don't tell anybody. 50 years ago today, Lou Gerhig died. I don't tell anybody. The New York State Probation Officers Association asked me to write a one-page article for the newsletter. So I figured, well, I'll just write it on this subject here. And then they liked it. There's only 750 members, statewide, but they like it. And then the next newsletter, a few months later, they asked me to write another article about Lou Gerhig.
Oh.
So then I started researching it. That's where I found out about the music therapy and the, that he was ahead of his time there. So I write another article, and in that article, I explained that former middleweight champion of the world, Rocky Graziano, the New York City kid, comes before Lou Gehrig on a probation violation in 1940. Well, Lou Gehrig sends Rocky Graziano back to reform school, and then 7 years later, Rocky Graziano is middleweight champ of the world. Yeah,
he is. Right. Yeah. Wow, that is a story.
Yeah. So you got.
Now, was Lou?
I have no fine arts.
Wait a second. Was Lou Gehrig alive then when Rocky was a success?
No. Good question. No, because Gehrig dies in 41, and so actually Rocky Graziano wants to, in his book, Somebody Up There Likes Me. It's like 3 or 4 pages of this incident of him coming before Gehrig.
What a story! That's a great story.
Paul Newman plays Somebody Up There Likes Me. The Rocky Graziano. They don't mention it in the movie about the Gehrig Graziano intersection of opposites, but they so it's not mentioned in the movie, but it is in the book. And so everything I'm telling you today is true. It's all been documented. I can prove all of it, because it's just so anyway. So the bottom line is Graziano comes before Gehrig. Gehrig sends him back to reform school. Graziano thinks he's going to get Gehrig's autograph for Uncle Louie, which didn't happen. And then you've got the music therapy that nobody knows about Lou Gehrig. They know that he would frequent the Metropolitan Opera, but they don't know that he actually. So I did have a little help along the way. I brought this story to when I wanted to write the play to the fella who's the head of the theater department at Binghamton High School. So he encouraged me to take this seminar in New York City. It was the name of the seminar was Only the Play That You Could Write, and it was given by this Christopher Diaz. He was a Brooklyn kid playwright who he wrote a play about a professional wrestler, and the name of the play was The Elaborate Entrance of Chad Deity, about a professional wrestler. and that play wins it finishes second. It's a finalist in the Pulitzer Prize in 2011, Best New American Play. So I go to this seminar, 3-hour seminar in New York City at the Samuel French Institute, and I learned more than 3 hours that I could believe about, I've asked anybody who's written a play, is like, the majority of the people I talk to they've got fine arts degrees. But I did write 1,000 sentencing reports as a probation officer. So, I mean, and Rod Serling, my favorite playwright, always said, he's from Binghamton, of course, always said that you're born a writer. Writers are not made. So okay.
Yeah, that's nice. Now, wait just a second. Amy, how many minutes have we done?
15.
We've done 15 minutes. Now, you have another 13 minutes to tell your story, dear.
Beautiful. Yeah, so the play is written, everything Rod Serling did was with a prologue and an epilogue. So I in my play that was played at the Phelps Mansion on February 17th, and the big thing I should tell you, I should have gone 15 minutes to tell you, we raised over $1,000. And the play was staged in 2016 at Binghamton High School, and we raised $1,000. The students read the play at Binghamton High School at 16, but my friend and your friend, who's a fabulous director, knows the arts back and forth, Judy McMahon, she directs the play this time.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable how the characters, it was a staged reading, but we put the music in. There was 2 Wagners and a Chopin songs that we that I integrated in at the appropriate, because obviously Gary, being a big Wagner, he liked Wagner. He liked all classical music, but so it kind of goes in the way, and Judy McMahon the Phelps Mansion is an old Binghamton mansion that has been national, done the historic, and we sold tickets, and we had a sold out crowd of 120 people, standing room only, in the ballroom there, and like I say, we raised other groups got some money too, but ALS got the majority of it. And the tickets were only $15. I mean, it was the Tony's Booster Club, a AA Mets affiliate here in Binghamton.
Now, what date was that, dear?
It was February 17th.
Of this year?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Last month.
Uh-huh.
Yes. And I sent you some pictures, by the way. I'm hoping that emailed them last night.
Yes, we got them. We got them.
Great.
How many minutes will the picture, Amy, how many minutes will the picture take?
Well, we're at 18 minutes right now.
No, how many minutes will the pictures take?
I don't know. There's only one picture, so probably only a...
No, there's actually 2. I sent one, and then I sent seven additional pictures, so you should be... the second email you probably didn't open. I wasn't sure how many I could send.
And how long will those pictures take? How long will it take to show those
5 seconds?
Yeah, they're just...
Well, can you show the pictures in a minute?
No.
2 minutes?
No. They don't take that long to show, Glendora. It's not going to take a minute to show them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's just the audience and the stage. There's 10 characters in the play.
I only see the one picture, but I don't see any other picture.
Let you guys know, obviously Babe Ruth was in the play, and Lou Gerhig and Eleanor Gerhig, and like I say, Eleanor Gerhig.
There's the picture,
guys.
guys.
She's a strong woman, and she was just again very interesting. Person. She writes the book. My Luke and I. So that scene, I kind of, they went around the world, and it was hard to write a death scene, let me tell you, especially never writing anything before, of like this. But we had,
now what's in the present? What's going on in the present about this? About Cooperstown.
And fortunately, I I was able to find some good stuff on Gerhig. I found a 1927 comedy routine that Gerhig and Babe Ruth did, and it was a flop because Babe wasn't the best reader, and Gerhig, they said, had a kind of a higher pitch or a voice that wasn't. But it was funny. I thought it was funny. They do some corny jokes, so I got lucky there. And then this ESPN has this 30-30 show, and years ago they had letters that Lou Gerhig wrote to his doctor at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. So we've got that scene in the play, along with the 27 comedy routine opens up, and then I said I already alluded to Rocky Graziano, and then the parole commissioners, and I threw a little Binghamton in there. Lefty Gomez was manager of the triplets, and he was on the team in 39 with Gerhig, and Joe DiMaggio actually I think is a rookie in 38. So Joe DiMaggio's, he's not in the play, but some of the team members are, and of course Mayor LaGuardia. So the
yes.
characters that you got a strong, compelling characters.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, what do you hope to do next?
Thanks, Glendora, for asking that, because there's a group that came down from a woman that came down from Cooperstown, and there's a group called the Sabres organization, and they converge all from the Northeast onto Cooperstown a certain time of the year for their convention, and they're interested in playing this play. I mean, they're talking about it. I don't know, nothing's at this point, but if we can get this play to be performed in Cooperstown next year in 2025, again, ALS is going to make some money, and hopefully at least $1,000. So that's the
whereabouts in Cooperstown do you hope to have it played? What, they have a theater up there? In Cooperstown is. I mean, you got the Glimmerglass Opera, so there's a lot of cultural. I'm sure they have community actors, but Judy McMahon, who directed this play, is more than willing to go up to Cooperstown and do it again, but she just doesn't. You don't want to have the same play next year in Binghamton. You want to, we want this play to, and it's a story, like I say, that that just the fact that Gerhig was a parole commissioner. Most people don't know that. This director that Keith's referring to is Judy McMahon, and she is my friend. And she's the one who directed the play so beautifully, right?
Oh, beautiful. And she gave me so much confidence, not as a writer, the fact that I haven't written anything, except for this play. I've written some other stuff, but this is the one that I put the most effort into. And I think it's the best one I've ever done, because it just tells a story that nobody knows.
And now, beyond Cooperstown, what do you hope for?
Well, I always envisioned that any local ALS chapter, like in Albany area, would everybody's got community actors, and there was a stage reading. So you've got the script in front of you, and the scenes are very simple. They've got a narrator to move you along. So I would like to think that once this play is I appreciate your time too, because I want the story to be told, and I want ALS is bigger than all of us. I mean, it's a disease that Gerhig fought, and he thought he was going to beat, but nobody beats ALS. It's just So, and I went to a support group in Binghamton at the time, just to learn more about the disease, and so I met a lot of people that had it, and that obviously have since passed. But so it's a kind of an adopted, disease. I don't have any friends I have my friends in the support group, but it's not like a relative or that I had it.
Amy, how many minutes, dear?
24.
Honey, what is the status of Lou Gehrig's recognition and appreciation today?
Well, everybody knows him as the Iron Horse. I mean, class act all the way around. Columbia guy, proud of the movie, proud of the Yankees. But there's so much more to this man. It gives the Gettysburg Address a sport.
No, I mean, how popular is Lou Gerhig today? Does he mean anything to the younger generation?
Well, the disease is named after him, so he should be more thought of. I mean, you got Babe Ruth, and back in the day, they said, "Oh, Babe, Lou, you ran into, you were always in Babe's shadow," and Lou Gehrig's response was, "Well, Babe had a pretty big shadow, so I had a lot of room to maneuver." But just the other stuff. One other thing I want to say about Lou Gehrig is that they asked him years ago about Negroes playing in the major leagues. At the time, that's what the reporter says that, would you still feel the same way? And Lou Gehrig's response about blacks playing in the major leagues is, baseball, there's no room in baseball for discrimination. Yes, it's America's pastime, and we're all Americans.
All right. Amy, let me know when we reach 27, would you please?
Sure.
Okay, honey. What do you want to be your last words, and what can the public do for you? You've done so much for the public. What can the public do for you?
Well, I'm going to keep plugging away, and I'm hoping that this Cooperstown thing, that it's staged again, and because every time it's staged, LS is going to make money. And that's what we're looking for, not any particular, And I've been in the 21st century now, and then I've got it digitized. So I'm gonna start sending it to some playhouses. And I'm told that new work is popular right now. So even though it's 85 years old, it's new work because it's never been.
Has anybody on Broadway shown any interest in your play?
No, because I think it's
We're at
really
27.
been more of a local. That's why I'm so glad to speak to you. I mean, with the Albany area. I mean, it's a story that just needs to be told, and I thank you for letting me tell it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to take a second here to tell my audience that my husband, Franklin Fuller Buell, who was a great baseball lover, saw Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth play in the same game in the year 1934 in Philadelphia.
Wow.
And he has a scrapbook of the box score and the newspaper article that was written about that game.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty nice, isn't it?
Ruth obviously past his prime, but Gehrig in his prime, pretty cool.
Yeah, right. So, last few minutes, honey. Anything?
No, I just, again, thanks. I just,
if you would like,
keep doing it.
If you would like anybody to get in touch with you, would you like to leave a contact?
I would love for people to reach out to me. You email or my phone, whatever you think would be best.
Okay, let's go with it. Let's go with the email.
Okay. Again, the email, K Vanderbeck at rocketmail.com. So K Vanderbeck, a Dutch name. K Vanderbeck at rocketmail.com.
Yes, one more time, please, honey.
Yes. K as in Keith, that's K Vanderbeck, Vanderbeck, it's a Dutch name, at rocketmail.com.
All right, dear. Well, I know I certainly respect what you've done, and I think my friends do too. I really respect what you've done, dear.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, are we up to 27, Amy?
Judy, I just had support. I had support from Judy. I've had support from my first editor who was retired.
We're at 29 minutes and 50 minutes.
People interrupt. I wrote structured sentences, and no, that's not how you write a play. Most of the time, people don't even...
Okay, honey. Our time is up.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a grand story. Grace and peace unto you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Keith Vanderbeck.
Yeah.